Hey everyone, I'm Jay Shear, and welcome to another episode of Business Minds Coffee Chat. The goal of this show is to share insights, help to lift and inspire others, and deliver relevant, meaningful, and actionable content. You ever wonder why companies like Google, Microsoft, Zoom, ADP, and Southwest Airlines are so successful? Hint, it's the people. And this means organizational culture is right at the top too. Your company culture is the DNA of your business. It's the shared ethos, the personality of the company. Culture impacts every aspect of your business. Our guest today is a subject matter expert in leadership development, building culture, and developing healthy, high-performing teams. With a BS in corporate communication, an MBA, and a number of professional certifications, she's been developing culture and people and helping organizations excel and grow their business for over 20 years. On top of all that, she's a hiker, cyclist, skier, motorcyclist, and dirt bike rider. Please welcome the founder, facilitator, designer, and coach of Breakthrough Culture, Christine Homer. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Jay. It's great to be here.
Well, it is my pleasure, and thank you so much for joining us today on the Coffee Chat. So let's dive right in. Can you give us a general overview of your business, and also let us know who your ideal client is?
Sure. I, as you mentioned, have been working within organizations and now externally helping to develop cultures that facilitate strategic success. So there is no right or wrong culture. In my opinion, there is healthy or unhealthy culture based on the business you're in and what you're trying to achieve. And that is all about the people and the leaders setting the tone from the top. So my business and my organization takes care of the three aspects of that. First of which is developing the right culture and helping organizations do that. Once we have that culture, how do we make sure we can bring it to life? And that means from the front line up to the senior levels. And some of that comes from developing leaders, developing teams, so that everybody's rowing in the same direction so that we can get to the goals and the outcomes that we're looking for our organization and on behalf of our constituents and our customers, whoever they may be. And that's the work I've done inside, and it's the work that I continue to do consulting with organizations. So to answer your question about the perfect organization, my personal mission is to build healthy communities. So it absolutely helps if I'm working with an organization that gives back and has a strong sense of community and service to the communities that they serve. And secondly, I really find it important that when I am working and consulting and having that initial conversation, that the leaders are truly bought in. And I mean the entire leadership team, meaning we are willing to change and stretch and try things out and do things differently, because we have a recognition that we could be more successful than we are right now, and we are ready and at a point right now to actually do some things differently. So when you have that buy-in and you have some sort of driver, whether that's environmental or internal, that we know we need to change and we recognize that we want to really lean into and develop culture, that's when I need the call. I find that that's where the success comes from versus me talking to somebody and trying to convince them that that's the important piece of for their success right now.
So, and we're going to talk more about culture and developing culture as we dig into this conversation. And so first, thank you for kind of giving a general overview and a snapshot of your company itself. So take us back a bit. Where does your journey begin? Where were you raised? And then let's kind of move forward a bit as you progress, and what led you into this field. So start us at the beginning, if you don't mind.
Sure. I was born outside of Buffalo, New York, in a suburb called Williamsville. And my father taught at State University College of Buffalo. He was a music professor. And my mother was an elementary school teacher, and then stayed at home while my sister, who's older than me, myself, and my brother were being raised before she returned to work and went into guidance counseling. So very much an education-focused upbringing. I think I learned to read well before kindergarten, and reading books and really just education as a whole is valued, and something that we focused on. I never once skipped school. I never once skipped an 8 a.m. class in college, which I know is really hard for people to believe, but that's for true and for real, because that's literally part of the DNA in our household is you respect your teachers and you respect the value of an education. So that's kind of really where we started from. And then I went to Ithaca College, got my undergrad in corporate communication. And what I find interesting in retrospect is that what they deemed corporate communication was really very much organization development, which is the field I'm in. So I took courses on leadership philosophy and instructional design, and I took courses about literally an entire semester on interviewing, different types of interviewing and skills, and what does that look and feel like, and how do you go about learning how to do that, in addition to how do you bring communications to life and bring your brand to life inside an organization. And when I graduated there, I went to M&T Mortgage Corporation, which was a subsidiary of M&T Bank. So a lot of people who are outside the region know M&T Bank because of the Baltimore Ravens M&T Bank Stadium. But they were housed in Buffalo, that was their headquarters, and then they split with New York. And I was very fortunate to move in the Mortgage Corporation to becoming a leader of the production team for the correspondent lending department at the time. And so we're talking the early 90s when your files were about this fat and everything was on paper. There was no electronic signature. I mean, this is back in the day. And so we had a lot of retail presence and then all of the paper processing in our location. And then we had my small but mighty team that worked with the brokers. And so if you picture one of those office buildings where you have hundreds and hundreds of cubes, just literally cube after cube after cube after cube with no space in between, and you could see from one end of the hall to the other. That was the environment where we worked. And I definitely had passion for the mortgage business because my connection was we're helping people find their homes. And that was something that was important to me because I grew up in a home in a beautiful neighborhood. And, you know, that was really part of my formative years as a kid playing in the neighborhood. And so the fact that we had the opportunity to connect to helping others have that experience was really important to me. And our business was a little bit different because we were working with the broker and the banker originations versus the retail organizations, which was the larger part of the operation. And so I have this awareness of, you know, there are jobs that people will live to work and there are jobs that people work to live. And a lot of the work that we do is in the work to live space, even to this day. This is something that I am passionate about, but, you know, it is really about the holistic life that we have. And so how do we make the experience of being in the office and doing the work that we need to do to live as pleasurable as possible? And my team really leaned into this. So I didn't know that I was developing a corporate culture at age 25, but I was developing a corporate culture at age 25. And they were very smart about putting us at like this one far end of that floor, because as you came closer to the ladies' room and the men's room, and then you kept going past to our world, we quite frankly had a volume issue. We had more conversation with each other than some of the other teams. We had more laughter than some of the other teams. We had more dialogue over the wall than some of the other teams. And it started me realizing that what we created was very unique culture within the broader mortgage organization. And with that, we had very low turnover. We had very high success. We had a ton of growth. And it was really just an incredible leadership experience for me. When I left there, because I ended up finishing my MBA, by the way, yes, I had to learn to golf and get my MBA if I was in banking. That was my own thing I did. So I did that. And then ended up moving to Denver and really looked back and said, as much as I appreciated operations leadership, because I love the understanding of the business levers and what are we trying to shoot for and what are the goals we're going to hit and how does this amazing team of people, quite frankly, do more than the numbers would show you we were even capable of doing. So how do we create that success? And we had a lot of promotions within our department as we continued to grow. And that was really the aspect of operations leadership that I liked the most, in addition to creating the culture. So I had to figure out, how do I do this for a living versus the operations leadership side? And I was really fortunate to meet somebody who was willing to hear that story and who had an opening for succession planning. And the logic was I have a really good team at the time at Corporate Express of practitioners who are quite good at learning and development, but didn't have the operations background. And I sold the story of, hey, I've got the credibility to say to them, culture matters, here's the success I've had, and I know it's hard to find time, but here's why it works for me, and sit across the table from another ops leader and have that dialogue at a different level. So that was lucky for me, my opportunity to move into this space. And I've basically been here for, like you said, the last 20 years, and moved from office products distribution to cable and telecommunications, and then to 10 years in healthcare before coming independent. So that was a long answer, but I hope that answered your question.
Well, it does, and I appreciate it because it gives us some good context around when the connection to a powerful culture resonated with you, when that started, and you started to pay attention to that and understood those levers and how important that is to effectiveness, efficiency, teamwork, hiring, retaining, all of those important things that happen in our businesses. So thank you for that. What was it like for you when you finally decided, I want to start my own business? What was that entrepreneurial leap like? Were you nervous about it? Did you already have potential built-in clients? Just kind of walk us through that, if you will.
I did not have potential built-in clients. I was with the DaVita Medical Group, and the DaVita Medical Group was sold from the DaVita Kidney Care parent company to Optum. And I was in a role where I was responsible for culture development, leadership development, and healthy teams. So the work I'm doing right now, but Optum as an organization and UHG, of course, has a path for that. So before the actual sale finalized, my manager called me in and said, this is kind of the path we're on. Totally understood it, logically understood it. And my position was no longer needed. And I went home and renovated my entire first floor. So I had a little space to reflect and think about, culturally, organizationally, industry, what matters most to me, where would I want to give my time and energy. I do have an aptitude for playing big and going all in, as I like to put it, and DaVita even brought that further. And so the question was, how do you find an organization that pulls me in to that extent, that I'm willing to do that again? And I was interviewing to go back to a couple other organizations, but none of them were local here in Golden or in Denver, and they were organizations outside. And I was really honest about not moving. And meanwhile, while this is all happening and things are playing out and they're finding folks who can relocate in some cases, I had a friend call me who has been doing this consulting work for years and was just completely overwhelmed. And she said, can you help me? I'm raising the white flag. I really just need help. I need you to do a couple 360 feedbacks for me. And I'm going in to do a culture assessment at a company. And it would be really helpful just to have a second set of eyes and ears. And that's kind of how it evolved. And then through my network, once I put a stake in the ground and said, this is the work I'm going to do independently, I am so grateful. I have some phenomenal relationships where people would call me or email me and say, hey, what are you doing now? I could use you for this work. And I've been very, very blessed with that. And secondly, my husband has a co-owned business that we work on with education for the healthcare supply chain. And so I've really split my time between the two businesses, but I never really thought I'm going to hang a shingle. It just evolved this way. And then I made the commitment to hang the shingle by turning down a job offer. And that really solidified, like, okay, I guess I mean it. I guess this is it. And it's been a really terrific experience since.
And you haven't looked back?
No.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good for you. Good for you. So as far as developing organizational culture, is this only for large companies?
It's for everybody who really believes that They believe in their people and they want to make the right experience for their team. That's really where culture comes from, is a leader with intention saying, I want this to be the greatest experience in service to our customers, in service to our mission, and in service to our team. So whether that's a department within a larger organization or a small to mid-sized organization, it counts and it matters. And I would also say that culture is going to be developed whether you consider how it's being developed and what you want from it or not. Mm. So there is a look and a feel when you walk into an organization that you sense, and that is culture. And that can be there by default, or it can be there with intention. And the question is, what choices as leaders are we willing to make to create culture, or to kind of let it just happen?
Yeah, that's a very powerful point, and something that I believe we all need to pay attention to if we're business owners. And so let's talk about that for a moment. With some of the clients that either you've worked with or companies that you've studied or have seen, what are some of the early warning signs of a poor company culture, and how does that affect employees?
It's a great question. And what I would say is that company culture is either healthy or unhealthy, given the work that they're doing and what they're striving to achieve. And whether or not that works with me and my belief system and my values is really the question on the table, versus is it good or bad, right? So when I'll just give you a personal example. When I was looking to stay in healthcare, but no longer with Intermountain Healthcare, I found DaVita, and DaVita is an incredibly deep culture. So knowing what I know about myself and what I believe about, building healthy communities, what I believe about the value chain of team member first, and if you have a strong team experience, then your patients or your customers will also benefit from that. So I believe in putting the team ahead of the customer. Mm-hmm. What other core beliefs do I have? I believe in transparency to the extent that it makes sense. I don't like things being hidden. I mean, tell me the truth so I can start to deal with it, versus hiding it and then ripping off the Band-Aid and it feels like a complete 180. So there are elements that I look for when I'm looking for a workplace that matter to me. And when I'm going out to interview and seek employment somewhere, I look for signs that that exists. But I'm also very intentional about culture. So, it comes out in the interview process, the onboarding process, and where you actually put your time, energy, and money in any organization. And so it's not about good or bad. It's about, does it fit with me and my skill set and my values so that I can thrive within this work environment, regardless of what that looks like or is. Does that make sense, or do you want an example?
No, that does make a lot of sense. Do you find when you're going into a business, not as a coach, but just going into a business in your everyday life, are you studying the signs, or are you looking for how do the employees engage with one another, how they engage with clients? Are you constantly thinking about a culture being healthy or not healthy?
It's a sickness, but yes. You can't turn this stuff off, So I'm in the grocery store and I'm listening to what conversations the team members are having with each other. Are they complaining about another team member? Are they complaining about their manager? Or are they having a dialogue about where are we going to go serve next? Or are they talking about their vacation or what happened over the weekend? Or, hey, how you doing? How's your sick child? What is going on in that environment? How open and honest are they being with each other? And really, where's the focus of their time and energy? And so it's such an interesting thing. And yes, it is a sickness. Like the bank branch I go to is full of joy. And I don't like going to other bank branches because the people who work there know each other by name, have conversation with each other, take care of us as customers. It's a vibe that you get that's incredibly healthy. It's incredibly welcoming. It's incredibly, it's just really light and airy for me. And when I seek out a doctor's office, or I seek out a bank branch, or I go to the supermarket, that's what I'm looking for, because that's where I'm going to thrive and feel good. And I can't take off that dang edit button anymore and not go to a place of, oh, okay, got it. This is what this is about. So, yeah.
I feel you on that. Do you say something? Do you kind of make a mental note and then follow up, find out who either the owner is or decision maker and start a conversation?
There are cases in which I will. If I think that there's a conversation that is really not supposed to be on the floor, there's a high likelihood I will find somebody and say, just so you know, that's the dialogue that's happening over here, and you might want to take that offline. Mm. And I have been known to do that just in service to the organization, because I don't know if that's systemic or a one-off, but yes, I will. If this business matters to me, it's part of my community, I'll absolutely have that conversation. Yeah. And my car dealership, I will give very direct feedback to about the conversations behind the front desk and how they are or are not in service to those of us waiting for our cars to be taken care of. Mm.
You know, I love that, the fact that you are willing to say something, that you're paying attention to it, but then you're also willing to take it a step further and take some sort of action. I think that's very important, especially with you bringing this kind of knowledge and skill set. How powerful is that? I mean, what a great opportunity to learn. So that's wonderful. So the next question I have for you, you started to share a little bit about this, but I'd like it if you would dig a little deeper. So for those that are watching and listening, these are going to be different size businesses. They're going to be small businesses, entrepreneurial type businesses, mid-sized businesses, and some larger companies as well. But what are some characteristics of a healthy, high-performing team?
Of a team, okay. Bottom line is trust. And I'll speak to a Patrick Lencioni model of the 5 elements of a healthy team. The bottom line in the triangle is just trust. And trust means you know who I am, I know who you are, and we are connected beyond just the business that we do. We have a mutual understanding and a trust for each other that matters, and quite frankly is foundation to every relationship. And then because of that, if we are going to disagree on something, there is an opportunity for what I would call healthy disagreement and discord versus cantankerous win-lose. I can present an idea and you can present an idea, and we may not be on the same page, but we respect each other and trust each other enough to have the conversation about, you know, how we go about solving this and get to the right outcome. And then you move up the triangle to then having shared goals, holding ourselves accountable to them, and then achieving and celebrating the results. So it's a model that I hold true to, but at the very, very foundation is literally that trust. That I know who you are when you show up every day, you know who I am, and we believe in each other and in our joint success for whatever it is that we're working towards.
Good stuff. How does mindset play a role in a strong culture?
It's an awesome question, Jay. Well, it's about intention. So if I go to work every day just basically wanting to do my job and go home and not thinking about what I'm doing, how I'm going about it, and the impact that I'm having on the people around me, then I am not tuning into the culture that I'm creating, and therefore there is no intention there, and I cannot move to a healthy culture until I change that mindset. So you have to have this level of self-awareness and EQ around who you are and how you show up. And then how does that link, again, back to the culture that we're trying to create and the work that we do, so that there's cohesion and alignment there, and then the authenticity is real and we can start to move forward. But that takes everybody kind of coming in and saying, I'm here to do great work in service to this mission, in service to this constituency, this patient, this customer. And that's kind of what's grounding me. And that's the type of culture that I look for, is that everybody come together and help figure this out. Highly collaborative, trust, respect, integrity. We're going to do the right thing. I never question anyone's motives, and we move forward as a team. But that is about mindset. That's about me going in and wanting to give of myself beyond my work.
Good answer. Thank you. Is there a client that you are not able to help?
So part of moving a culture, let's just say I'm called in because I know something needs to be done differently and I'm not figuring it out on my own, right? So I come in. I have to be working with leaders who have that recognition, have a self-awareness of who they are open to the feedback around how we got to where we are today, because it's evolutionary, it's not dramatic and revolutionary, and are willing to show up and do things differently and try things on and have the courage to change themselves on behalf of the culture. And that's not every leader. So, those things have to be in place. And we also have to have a shared understanding of what we're shooting for and why it's going to matter and make the difference. And there's a little bit of faith in there, because some of this stuff doesn't feel really hard, doesn't feel like hard business stuff, but it is. So how do we get everybody on the same page and moving that forward? And what happens when somebody dissents? So, it's a joint effort for leaders to actually move a culture and create or move one forward.
Have to have everybody on board.
Absolutely.
So how are you processing what's happening in the world today, and what specific tactics and actions are you taking to stay focused and keep yourself inspired and motivated?
It's a real interesting leadership lesson, and it's also a lesson in values right now. And people are making choices, and there is a variety of information that's out there. And depending on where I get from my information, what I believe, I will make the choices that are meaningful to me and my family, right? So that's kind of the foundation of what's going on in the world. And I don't know that there's a significant level of trust in information that we universally have as a source of truth, that we are all then able to make good decisions. So we're doing the best we can. And without clarity, doing the best we can is the best we can do. And we have to do and make decisions that are right for us. And I think the challenge that I'm seeing in the world right now is the judgment that comes when somebody makes a decision that's different than mine. I am choosing to mask on a bike ride, and when I come up on somebody, I pull my mask up. And when I was out the other day, about only 30% of us were doing that. How do I stay out of judgment in making the choices that I'm making for myself and my family, different than somebody else's choices? And how do we basically say it's okay to see the world differently, and it's okay to make the choices that we make, and not have it be a win-lose, right-wrong? And what I think we're finding in the world right now is there's this judgment, and there's a right and a wrong, versus we all have to do what's right for ourselves and our family and what matters to our business. And trust that we're all educated enough around those choices to move forward and figure this out together. And what's unfortunate is I'm seeing this divisiveness still, instead of a collaborative effort, or at least a shared, I'm okay with you making that choice if I'm making this choice, and we're going to be okay together. So that's kind of how I'm seeing how things are playing out. And I am hoping that as the world continues to heal and we have more success in managing the virus, and we get more data and we get more shared understanding and sources of truth that tell us and indicate to us we're heading in the right direction, that we can come back together.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of stating it. And I also like your optics around that. So thank you for sharing that. How has COVID-19 changed the way that you do business?
Well, a lot of online. I had always worked from home, but I was more than willing to drive to client sites and have face-to-face. And I really do prefer being in a room with somebody, because I like to sense somebody's energy. I like to kind of look at the space and see what's going on and how they interact with the folks around them, and what it feels like to walk down the hall to get to the space that I'm going to meet somebody. Because again, I'm getting a sense of the culture with that. So that has been a switch, because I don't have that extra stuff. And then you're reliant upon your client to give you all the feedback and trust that they've got a handle on some of these things. I've been doing a lot of online Zoom coaching, which I have found to be incredibly valuable because everybody is so in the zone and there's no distractions because no one's at your door and nobody's walking down the hall past the conference room. And so that's been an incredibly concentrated effort. And some of the leadership training that obviously I would be doing in the room, I have adapted to online, which requires me to send workbook pages out in advance, me to maximize the use of all of the tools like breakout rooms and conversations and things. So that's been an adjustment. And of course, nobody wants to be online for 8 hours, so it's 2-hour chunks. And so we've had to flex some of the scheduling. But for the most part, I'm really grateful to have clients who still see value in the work that I do. And they're seeing results in the work that we're doing together. And so I've been very, very fortunate. So we've all had to pivot into this electronic world in some way, shape, or form. And I think what'll be interesting is when we come out of this, what does that open up? Does it open up people who never thought that a team could work remotely to actually have a couple days of work remotely? Or does it even open up the possibility of me hiring outside my community? Because we're literally proving right now that there can be success in moving work forward and coming together as a team virtually. So do I have to be in your neighborhood, or is it okay that I'm in another state if I bring the skills and the aptitude to the team that makes the most sense for you to get the work done? And so I'm kind of hopeful that there's some opportunities on the other side of this and some learning on the other side of this, even if we were forced into it. That we come out the other side and say, wow, you know, I can be open to some different possibilities with my talent and my team that I wasn't before.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. I really do believe that we're going to see more of that happening and companies looking at their resources and really surrounding themselves with the absolute best talent and understanding that they don't have to be right here, that we can be incredibly effective and impactful with remote workforces. You bring the skill sets, have trust, as you were talking about earlier, and magic can happen as long as we have the right people, the right positions, the right culture that we're operating from. Good stuff. So let's get hyper tactical for just a moment. What are some of the ways that our viewers can build a culture of excellence? So if you were to say, look, these are 3 to 5 critical areas that any business should be focused on, what would they be?
Okay. So small, medium, or large company, who's your customer? What's your mission and your vision? Do you have that locked in? And if you don't, let's get a clean statement of what we're shooting for. Then what values do we have as an organization? And those aren't just labels. Those are the value plus a definition plus behavioral statements. Because I think if you put 5 people in a room and you say the word respect, we're all going to define respect differently. Is respect important to the business? Yes, but let's get all on the same page for what that means. And then how do I know when I see it or I don't see it? When is that value being lived? When is it not being lived? And if we don't take it to a behavioral level, then it's hard to hold someone or anyone accountable to that being lived. So once you have your mission, your vision, and your values in place, then you have to step back and say, how does that show up? So when I interview, I always say to a company, what are your mission, vision, and values, and how do I know you mean it? And that's kind of like, how do you answer that question for yourself? If I come into your workspace, or I talk to someone on your team, or I talk to someone in your leadership, what do they tell me about this organization? And is it cohesive? What gets airtime on your agendas? Who's at the table making the right decisions? When you communicate, what do you lead with? Do you lead with messaging to your team about customers? Do you lead with your team about leadership? Do you lead about them? Do you lead about finances? What is it that you value that is going to come to life in how you put all this together? And really, what's the feel of the organization? So if your organization says that fun is a value, which was true for DaVita, how do I know that this is fun? If you tell me that it's respectful, do I see people making eye contact? Do I see them having conversation level to level, or do I see it like this? What does it actually look and feel like? So it's mission, vision, values, behavioral statements, and then literally like use your 5 senses. What do I hear? What do I see? What do I smell? What do I sense? in the work environment and in meetings and on paper that tells me that you actually mean it and that this is who you are and that you're living that through. And when you have people come in almost like a secret shopper, like we've done that in organizations where I say, go find the service principles being lived and tell me what you see and let's give feedback. It's a really interesting thing because from the outside looking in, you get all the data that you need. But sometimes from the inside out, you miss that objectivity. And so literally you have to be willing to step back and say, if this is what we mean, how do we know it? How do we demonstrate it? How do we live it? How do we communicate it? And then repeat until it truly lives consistently.
Love it. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Great response. And that's something that we definitely want to make sure that we are implementing and weaving into the fabric of all of our businesses and organizations. So before I ask my last question to you, it's amazing how quickly time goes. But before I do ask that last question, where can we go to learn more about you and the incredible work that you're doing?
Oh, thanks, Jay. You can just go to www.breakthroughculture.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Christine Homer.
Okay, very good. I would encourage everybody to do that. So here is my final question to you. You ready?
I guess so.
Christine, what is a lesson learned that has had a massive impact on your life?
So when I was at the bank, I messed up. And the details of the story don't matter, but I messed up and then I came to my performance review. And my manager was an amazing leader who taught me a lot about leadership, Mary. And I sat down and I was an absolute nervous wreck because I thought this mistake that I made is coming back at me. And I just know it. And it's going to be bad and I'm going to have to defend myself. And it was like a very nerve-wracking thing for me. And I think performance reviews do that to people. And the performance review was basically a white sheet of paper, and then the manager wrote whatever they wrote. And I read through it, and then I picked up my eyes, and then I read through it again, and for whatever reason, it was not even in there. And I was just completely stunned, and I kind of sat back, and she said, what, did you not like what I wrote about you? Because it was a beautiful review. And I said, no, I really love what you wrote about me, but what I don't understand is why that mistake isn't in here, because that was very monumental for me, and I would have expected it to at least be referenced, even if it didn't affect the overall performance. And her answer to me was, Christine, you have beat yourself up about this more than I could ever do or anyone else could ever serve. She said, so what good does it do me to put that in a review when you know what you did wrong, you fixed it, and we have all moved on? And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, like when I started then putting performance management out to the world and helping leaders not have the halo or the horns effect, basically, I had experienced that personally. And the reality of the situation that I took away from that wasn't only how to do a quality performance review and not carry that forward, but also the reality that if you hire people who have high level of conscientiousness and high level of integrity and are willing to give their best and recognize when they don't, that you don't have to do that much, because the world is going to correct itself, and you will continue to learn and grow as a team and as individuals to find that success. So failure is good. Learning from failure is good. And if you hire right, that's never going to happen again, and we're all going to move forward and be successful. And it was a huge lesson. Like, I was probably 27 years old at the time. And I've carried that with me always. And I thought that was she probably doesn't even know she gave me that gift, but she did.
I love that. That's a great lesson learned. And it's certainly one that we can all benefit from. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. So on that note, Christine, thank you so very much for joining us on today's Business Minds Coffee Chat. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you taking the time to share your experiences, your story, your knowledge, giving us some tactical things that we can all do. And I would encourage everyone to connect with Christine, learn more about her work, how she's benefiting other companies, and how she could potentially benefit your company as well. So connect, engage, and learn. So Christine, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And for all of you, thank you very much for watching. If you found value in this episode, please like and share with your friends. And until next time, stay healthy and optimistic. Keep learning and growing. And remember that transformative change in your life and business begins with you, and nothing happens until you take action. Take care, everybody. See you next time.